This video is going to show how to implement manufacturing requirements as constraints to guarantee manufacturability with the Constraint Manager in OrCAD X PCB Designer. All PCB manufacturers have different minimum requirements for fabrication. If a submitted board does not meet these requirements, the manufacturer may send it back, hindering the design process, or the board could be produced incorrectly. Either way, not adhering to design rules can result in increased design time and cost. OrCAD X PCB Designer provides quick and easy means to ensure the board design adheres to all requirements during layout. Let's start by determining manufacturer requirements. Open a web browser and navigate to the website of the desired manufacturer. In this example, we will use CRS circuits. Select PCB Products, Web PCB from the menu. Scroll down to the Information and Capabilities table. Locate the capabilities for trace width and spacing. In this case, the minimum trace width and spacing is 4 mils. To assign manufacturing constraints to a board, open a design in OrCAD X PCB Designer. Select Setup Constraints from the menu or the Constraints button from the toolbar. Select the manufacturing domain from the worksheet selector. Expand the Design for Fabrication and DFF Constraint Set section. For this example, we will start by adding copper constraints. Select the Copper Features worksheet. In the Name column, select the Create New placeholder. Enter the manufacturer name for the CSET and click OK. Constraint sets can be created for various manufacturers and loaded into the software to easily adhere to differing manufacturing requirements and capabilities. Select the minimum line width cell and enter the minimum trace width, in this case 4 mils. To assign spacing constraints, select the Copper Spacing worksheet in the DFF Constraint section. In the Name column, select the Create New placeholder. Enter the manufacturer name for the CSET and click OK. Expand Trace to and select the cell for trace. Enter the minimum trace spacing, in this case 4 mils. Additional copper spacing constraints are available in the Constraint Manager. Back on the manufacturer's webpage, review the preferred manufacturing capabilities information to determine copper spacing requirements. Return to OrCAD X PCB and expand Shape to. Add constraints for shape-to-shape spacing, shape-to-trace spacing, all pin pads, and all via pads. In this case, these constraints are defined from the minimum air gap. Inner layers on your board will likely have tighter requirements for constraints. Under the Name column, select the Create New placeholder, name the CSET Manufacturer Name Inner, and click OK. Expand Hole under Trace and Shape and set the inner layer thicknesses as needed. Let's add some more constraints. Select the Annular Ring worksheet. In the Name column, select the Create New placeholder. Enter the manufacturer name for the CSET and click OK. Select the cells for all pins hole to pad and all vias hole to pad and enter the required value, in this case 6 mils. Navigate back to CRS circuits to check the silkscreen and legend capabilities. The minimum silkscreen width is 5 mils, we'll call it 6 just to be safe. Back in the Constraint Manager, navigate to the silkscreen worksheet. Select New Name, enter the manufacturer name, and click OK. For CRS circuits, set the minimum width to 6 mils, the minimum length to 6 mils, text overlap to off, and text under component to on. With the constraints defined, let's assign them to the nets. Expand the Design for Fabrication Design section. Select the Annular Ring worksheet. Expand the primary row. Select the Reference DFF set cell for conductor and select the defined set from the drop-down. The constraints are automatically assigned to the conductor layers. Select the Design Copper Features worksheet. Expand the primary row. Select the Reference DFF set cell for conductor and select the defined set from the drop-down. The constraints are automatically assigned to the conductor layers. Constraint sets can also be assigned by layer. Select the Design Copper Spacing worksheet. Expand the primary and conductor rows. Select the defined set from the drop-down for top and bottom. If the design has different spacing requirements for inner layers, click and drag to select the Reference DFF set cells for the inner layers. Select the Inner Layer Constraint Set from the drop-down. To assign inner layer constraint sets to all plane layers, select the same constraint set from the Reference DFF set drop-down for the plane row. Lastly, let's assign the silkscreen mask constraints. Select the Design Silkscreen worksheet and expand Primary and Mask. Click and drag to select the reference DFFC set cells for all relevant masks and select the constraint set. Before any constraint checks are performed by the software, the Design for Manufacturing check modes must be activated. To do this, select Analyze Analysis Mode from the Constraint Manager menu. The Analysis Modes window opens. Select Design for Fabrication Outline from the sidebar. A table of checks appears. Check On under Mark All Constraints to activate all constraint checks. Let's follow the same procedure for the other constraint checks for mask, annular ring, copper features, copper spacing, and silkscreen. Click OK to save the settings and close the window. Close the Constraint Manager. The constraint sets have been assigned and checks have been activated. With the constraints assigned, we can now use the software to identify potential manufacturing issues. If the DRC button in the bottom right corner of the screen is red, the DRC cache is out of date. Select the button and click Update. DRC markers have appeared throughout the board. Hover your cursor over one of the errors for additional information. As an example, we will correct the errors on the right side of the board by changing trace widths. Zoom in on the bottom right corner. Select Edit, Change Objects from the menu. Check the option for line width and enter 8. Click the traces with markers to thicken the lines and remove the errors. When finished, right-click and select Done. For efficient rule reuse between designs and team members, manufacturing rules can be saved and loaded into other designs. Select Setup Constraint from the menu or the Constraints button from the toolbar. Select File, Export, Constraints. Under Contents, uncheck User Property Definitions, Electrical Constraints, Physical and Spacing Constraints, and Properties so that only manufacturing constraints are selected. Name the file and click Save. To import the set, select File, Import, Constraints. Select the Save set and click Open. A difference report will be shown. The constraints added in this tutorial are not exhaustive and only provide an example of the capabilities included in OrCAD to manage manufacturing requirements and capabilities. Design a manufacturable board the first time to avoid derailing your project with rejections installed fabrication with the Constraint Manager in OrCAD X PCB Designer. For more tutorials, visit us at resources.ema-eda.com and don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.